Let's be honest. You're here because you want to get smarter, right?
Yeah.
You want to cut through all the noise, the endless information, and just get to the good stuff.
Stuff that actually matters.
Exactly. And it feels like, well, like we're drowning sometimes, doesn't it? Constantly told how to think, how to feel.
How to be. It's a lot.
It really is.
And that's kind of what we're tackling today. We've gone through some notes, a summary, actually, of Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Feck.
Which, I mean, that title alone tells you something, right?
Definitely signals we're not getting the usual sugar-coated self-help advice.
You got it. So forget the constant pressure to be, like, relentlessly positive all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Our mission here in this deep dive is to really pull out the core ideas, the no-nonsense stuff from Manson's work.
What actually resonates if you're trying to navigate life without getting lost in all the fluff?
Right. And it's, surprisingly, a very grounded take.
It really is. Instead of just focusing on winning, winning, winning.
Which is what you usually hear.
Yeah. Manson actually talks about, well, accepting that struggles and, frankly, losing sometimes are just part of the deal. It's refreshing.
Okay, so let's jump right into it then. The first big idea from the notes. It's about the power of choosing what we actually care about.
Mm-hmm. He talks about having a limited number of, well, fix to give. That's his term.
Right.
Blunt, very. But what's interesting is how it pushes back against this culture of needing to care about everything.
Oh, totally. We get bombarded. News, social media, everything feels urgent.
Exactly. And Manson's point is you just can't sustain that. You need to be selective. It's like having an emotional budget.
Yeah, emotional budget. I like that.
You only have so much energy, so where are you spending it?
Mm-hmm.
On things you consciously choose or just reacting?
Right, reacting to every notification, every opinion online. He's saying that just leads to burnout.
Pretty much. And the notes really stress this. It's not about becoming indifferent or apathetic.
No.
No, it's about selective caring, being intentional, making a conscious choice about where your energy goes.
That really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? How much energy do we waste on things we can't even control?
So much. The endless scroll, what strangers think.
Yeah. The notes actually pulled a quote, didn't they?
You only have a limited number of flicks to give,
Yeah.
so you better give them to something that matters.
So direct. But it hits home.
It really does. It
Mhm.
forces you to look at your priorities, like what actually aligns with your values, what's genuinely important.
By being pickier, you free up space for the things that, well, actually count.
Exactly.
Okay, now this next idea. It made me pause. The idea that happiness is a problem, not a goal. That feels kind of backwards.
It does sound backwards at first, yeah. But Manson's argument is pretty sharp. He questions this whole chase for constant happiness, like it's some permanent state we can achieve.
Which is what most people think they want.
Right. But he suggests that real sustainable happiness actually comes from solving problems,
Yeah.
engaging with challenges.
Solving problems. How so?
Well, life just naturally involves problems,
Yeah.
right? Big ones, small ones. Our brains are kind of wired to notice them. It's a survival thing.
Okay.
So instead of fighting that, Manson says, lean into it. Find problems that are meaningful to you and work on solving those. That process, that engagement, that's where a different kind of satisfaction comes from.
So always wanting more positive stuff can actually make you feel worse. There was that quote in the notes. Something about desire.
Yeah, it's a bit of a paradox.
Mm.
The desire for more positive experience is itself a negative experience. And paradoxically, the acceptance of one's negative experience is a positive experience.
Whoa. Okay, that takes a second to unpack.
It does, but think about it.
Yeah.
Constantly trying to avoid discomfort, always needing things to be perfect,
Hmm.
that creates its own stress, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Whereas accepting that, hey, problems are going to happen, and focusing on tackling the ones you choose to care about, that can lead to a more, I guess, stable sense of contentment.
So it's not about dodging all the bumps, but choosing which road you're willing to travel, bumps and all.
You got it. That whole dream of a completely stress-free life, maybe that's not the most realistic or even desirable goal.
Maybe the goal is just getting better at dealing with the problems you choose.
That seems to be his point, choosing your struggles, in a way.
Okay, this next one. This might ruffle some feathers. You are not special, and that's a good thing.
Huh. Yeah, that definitely goes against the grain.
Because we hear it all the time. You're amazing. You're extraordinary.
And Manson directly critiques that, what he calls the special snowflake mentality.
Which some self-help stuff kind of feeds into, doesn't it?
It can, yeah. The notes actually quote him, entitlement is the enemy of growth.
Oof. Strong words. But is there maybe some freedom in not having to be special all the time?
That's exactly the point he makes.
The pressure to constantly be exceptional, to stand out,
Yeah,
it's just exhausting.
totally. And it often leads to more insecurity, comparing yourself constantly.
So accepting that you're, well, average in a lot of ways,
Huh.
that's actually liberating.
Incredibly liberating, according to Manson. It takes off that pressure to always prove yourself. It lets you focus on actual growth on your own terms without needing constant external validation.
I can see that,
Yeah.
especially with social media. Everyone's highlight reel.
Makes you feel inadequate, yeah.
So the idea that it's okay to be, pretty normal at most things and just focus your energy where it really matters to you,
Mm.
that feels lighter.
It does. It allows for more self-acceptance, less self-imposed pressure.
Okay, let's shift to values. Manson argues we all operate based on values, right? Consciously or not.
Yes, and that the kind of values we hold really shapes our lives. He talks about good versus bad values.
And the distinction is important. What did the note say makes a value good?
According to the notes, good values are reality-based, socially constructive, and immediate and controllable.
Okay, reality-based, socially constructive, immediate, and bad values.
Are the opposite, basically. Superstitious, socially destructive, and not immediate or controllable. Things based on external factors you can't influence.
Right. The example given was valuing always being right versus valuing honesty.
Exactly. Needing to be right often creates conflict. It's ego-driven. Valuing honesty or maybe generosity tends to build better connections. It's more outward focused.
So socially constructive means it helps build things up rather than tearing them down.
Pretty much. Good for you, good for others around you. Constructive.
The notes suggested thinking about your own values and asking, are these actually within my control? That seems really practical.
It's a great check. Are your values based on your own actions, like being honest? Or do they depend on external things, like being popular or rich? Focusing on controllable values gives you more agency.
That leads nicely into the next point, which the notes highlighted as really critical, responsibility versus fault.
Yes. This one is subtle, but so powerful.
It's easy to mix them up.
Very easy. The quote from the notes was, you are always responsible for how you interpret your experience and respond to it.
Okay, so that doesn't mean you're at fault for everything bad that happens to you.
Absolutely not. Bad things happen that aren't your fault at all. A pandemic, an accident, someone else's actions.
Right.
But you are always responsible for how you choose to respond to those things. Your interpretation, your actions going forward, that's always yours.
So it's about owning your reaction, not necessarily the event itself.
Precisely. It shifts you out of feeling like a victim, which can be really disempowering.
Because if you feel like a victim, you feel powerless.
Exactly. But taking responsibility for your response, even in a terrible situation, gives you back a sense of control. Agency. You choose what happens next.
The notes framed it as shifting from why me to, okay, what now?
Yeah, what am I going to do with this? That shift is incredibly empowering. It puts the ball back in your court.
You can't always control the first arrow, but the second arrow, your reaction, that's on you.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, next up, the do something principle. This one feels wonderfully simple.
It really is. It tackles that common problem of waiting for motivation before you act.
We've all been there. I'll do it when I feel like it.
Right. And Manson flips that. The notes quote him saying, action isn't just the effect of motivation, it's also the cause of it.
So action creates motivation, not just the other way around.
Exactly. It's like jump-starting a car. Sometimes you just need to get it moving even a little bit, and then the engine catches.
That initial tiny push.
That tiny push can create momentum. A small action leads to feeling a bit better, which makes the next action easier, and suddenly you find you're motivated.
It reminds me of that trick, like, I'll just work on this for 5 minutes.
Yeah. And how often do you end up going for longer once you start?
Pretty often, actually. It breaks that initial inertia.
It does. It shows you don't need some grand wave of inspiration to start. Just do something.
Yeah.
Anything.
Simple but effective. Okay, finally, the big one, death.
Yeah, definitely not your typical self-help topic.
Most books avoid it completely, but Manson argues that facing our mortality actually gives life meaning.
It's a profound point. The quote was, you are going to die, and that's what makes you alive.
Wow. So acknowledging that our time is finite, that's what makes the time we have valuable.
Precisely. It forces you to confront what truly matters. If time is limited, You stop sweating the small stuff so much,
Yeah,
right?
you start prioritizing differently.
You gain perspective. You think more carefully about your values, how you spend your energy, who you spend your time with. It encourages living more deliberately, more intentionally.
The notes mentioned asking yourself, like, what would you regret not doing if you knew time was short?
That's such a powerful focusing question. It cuts through the noise, the obligations, the distractions, and gets right to the heart of your real priorities.
It shifts the focus from external expectations to what's truly authentic for you.
Exactly. What kind of life do you want to live knowing it won't last forever?
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. Bringing all these ideas from the notes on the subtle art together.
It paints a pretty clear picture, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's about choosing where to give those limited flex wisely,
Accepting that problems aren't just obstacles, they're actually part of finding happiness.
finding freedom in not being special all the time, which is kind of radical.
Aligning yourself with values that are real, constructive, and within your control.
Taking responsibility, not for events, but always for your response to them.
Using action itself to build momentum and motivation instead of just waiting for inspiration.
And finally, using the awareness of death, of mortality, to give life focus and meaning.
It's a very direct, no-nonsense framework.
Definitely. So maybe a final thought for you, the listener, building on that last point.
Yeah, thinking about mortality and values,
Hmm.
maybe ask yourself this. What's one worry, one obligation, maybe a comparison trap?
Something you're currently investing energy in.
Right. What's one thing you're giving a feck about right now that maybe you could reclaim
Reclaim that energy.
and redirect it towards something that feels truly meaningful, something that really resonates, especially knowing your time isn't infinite.
What would that be for you?
Yeah, just something to sit with